recently made a couple of videos about locomotive development at the LMS. Well, today it's the turn of the Great Western Railway. Well, there were lots of changes in railway companies as the years went by. In 1923 we had the grouping, as it was called, into the big four companies, and in 1948 we had nationalisation when British Railways came into existence. But through it all, there's one company that was relatively unaffected by any changes: the Great Western Railway. There was, however, one very big change in their history, because until 1892, which was most of really the 19th century, they used broad gauge. And the man back in the day was Gooch, William Gooch. Followed by Armstrong in 1864. In 1877 we had Dean, who was the chief mechanical engineer until 1902. Well, Dean designed this locomotive that we're looking at here. The Great Western Railway loved the 060 tank locomotives. It all started with Armstrong and basically just developed as the years went by. Well, when Dean originally designed this locomotive, it wasn't a pannier tank, as we're looking at here. It was a saddle tank. Well, it was rebuilt as a pannier tank because they decided to convert to a bell pair firebox. That was the idea of Dean's successor, George Jackson Churchward, who got a lot of ideas from around the world of how to develop steam traction, because the Great Western Railway locomotives of Dean were a bit slow and a bit cumbersome, to be honest. So Churchward got the idea of the bell pair firebox. I think Bell Pair was a French guy. Now the bell pair firebox, if we look at the LNER locomotive, the B12, we notice the boiler is all the same dimension all the way along. Whereas when we look at Great Western, here's the firebox, big square thing, bell pair. Well, as I said, Churchward came in 1902, and one of the first locomotives he designed, along with Dean, when Churchward was Dean's deputy, was the 440, the City of Truro, which they say was the first locomotive to travel over 100 miles an hour. Although never been scientifically evidenced, but it probably did. Well, I would really love to have a model of City of Truro. I don't have one. Next came the county, the 440 county that we're looking at here, the county of Bedford. This was one of Churchward's, so we'll be seeing County of Bedford running today. Churchward did toy with the idea of building a Pacific locomotive. So in other words, 462 wheel arrangement. The Great Bear it was called. I think that was 1911. But they decided, because of the big curves they had on their tracks, that they didn't want a Pacific. They stuck with the 460s. They converted the Great Bear to a 460, and all their big express locomotives after that were 460s. And we're looking here at an example of the Star class. This is Knight of the Grand Cross. Another Churchward locomotive there, the 2800 class. The freight locomotive, which is a 280 wheel arrangement. Now in 1923, when we had the grouping, what happened to the Great Western Railway? Well, it kind of just carried on, just absorbed quite a lot of companies in Wales, really. So to cope with the Welsh valleys and all the coal traffic that was coming through Wales, Churchward adapted this locomotive into a tank locomotive form. And we got the 4200 class, which is there. Well, I know it's in a British Railways livery, but you can't always get what you want, you know. But we're going to see the 4200 running today anyway. How about that? Let's get them running.